Do you like to ship fast or do you like to ship perfect?
I like to ship fast myself and make
Mhm.
others ship perfect, and then we have a good trade-off. Otherwise, it's
They
not.
have to clean up your problems. Got it.
Well,
Um,
not really, but like they do their part and it equalizes somehow.
yeah, yeah. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. I am super excited to chat with Vasilije Markovic, CEO and co-founder of Cognee. Very, very excited to have you here. You've just had a pretty great fundraising announcement. So you've raised 7.5 million from Pebblebed, who's leading, as well as us. We're participating, and we're just really excited to have you here. Welcome, and briefly tell us what is Cognee.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for participating in the round. I'm Vas. I'm building Cognee, which is a knowledge engine for AI apps and agents. Make this data that companies have and agents produce available to other agents in a way that they can actually understand, reason, and get the data in format they can produce the right answers. So that's the Cognee's knowledge engine.
Yeah, and it's a super interesting space right now, especially we both spend a lot of time thinking about how everything is going to fit together, and this is one of those things that just I don't think has been solved well yet. But I want to start off with your backgrounds. Your background's pretty unique. It spans, I believe, psychology and cognitive science, which is pretty unique considering where you're at. So I would love for you just to kind of give a quick background of your path and how to kind of lead to where you're at today.
Sure. So I'm originally from the Balkans, Montenegro. So my family's been there since the 1420s. That's where we can, get. Yeah. So before the America was even discovered, I think I know all my cousins, but that doesn't mean too much. My ancestors. What I did around the age of 19, I went to study business in Italy, one of the top business schools in Europe, where I got exposed to the world of finance and banking, and decided I want to be that guy. So I went into IT instead. So I became a data analyst, data engineer, data product manager, mostly working on big data systems. I worked for a couple of German unicorns, and then after you're kind of moving data from place A to place B, you kind of get a bit bored, right? So it wasn't particularly interesting for me. And after a while, so I decided to go back to studies. So I started studying cognitive sciences because that was one of the rare things that was kind of bridging social sciences plus something practical and useful. And as I was doing that, I got to an idea to actually build this knowledge engine as I was doing my higher cognitive science courses. And I built it. It got traction on X, it got traction on social media, and slowly we did a pre-seed and now a seed round with Pebblebed, with you guys, and with 42 Cap, our previous investor.
Awesome. And so, you were kind of watching what was going on around you and you built something, which I think is the correct way to go into building a startup. But when you watch teams try to move from AI agents from like a demo, like sandbox environment directly into production, what did you see break over and over again?
Yeah, so there is a few key points that we've noticed when we talk to companies. One is the data model. So if we talk about the relational world and the world of like traditional data warehouses, I built like 17 version of the same fact and dimension tables back in the days. And everyone defines their KPIs a bit differently, but it's almost always the same. With the LLMs, these data models go out of the window because they're producing so much diverse input. You're processing all kinds of data that was never processed before, like PDFs and unstructured data. And all of these teams, they need a way to really dynamically define how these data models look like and make them evolve, because no one can humanly analyze and keep these updated in the way they analyzed it in the past, especially if you have a million agents doing some type of operations. This whole system needs to be automated and outsourced to an external system. On top of that, we have issues of big data processing. Most of the systems, like LangChain, for example, when I started 2-3 years ago, it was a mess. I mean, Harrison is an amazing guy. He did a great job, but actually getting that to production at scale with terabytes of data is not something that you can easily do. Secondly, latency becomes a big topic, right? So it used to cost me 325 USD to do one single pipeline run. And I
Wow.
talked to Neil4j. Yeah. In the time they told me I'm crazy. Why am I even using LLMs for this? And I kind of figured that it's going to go down. And now it's costing fractions of a cent but the latency and waiting for these LLM calls to come back because the inference takes some time is still a big bottleneck often enough in designing and managing the system. So you need to know how to handle it. So these are the major pieces that we base the technology around, and the pieces that we try to solve effectively by building Cognee and kind of answer these user needs in larger companies, not just for demo purposes. And that's what we usually see they need. And I had like 3 conversations like that last week where they're asking exactly how am I gonna move from stage A to B.
Yeah, yeah, it's the question that everyone's asking right now, even I am. So, I think that that makes a lot of sense, and the price reduction has been crazy to see. I can't imagine us spending that much money. So, a lot of people are talking about embeddings and RAG as memory, and then that framing kinda starts to fall apart in practice, I think. How are you thinking about it?
Yeah, so I think embeddings are a good building block, but they are
Yeah.
not solution in itself. And now, if you ask me if vector stores are a separate category, I think most of the VCs ask this question to other VCs. I still don't know. I would say probably not because JSONs are not a separate category. You can store them in a relational database, although people try to build databases that just serve them. I think the same is going to happen probably eventually with vector stores. These building blocks, if you use them in a smart way, you can really manipulate the data in a very sophisticated set of ways, but they are not easy to use. And then most of the end users that we see really need help to handle that complexity. So what we really focused on is like, hey, let's give you a Pythonic interface, Pydantic data models, this like relatively simple paradigm. Pydantic did a great job, by the way, so we're kind of, stealing their thunder there a bit. But let's give you just something that really works, and you don't have to really think about like, am I indexing this correctly? Is this collection really managed well? Am I refreshing this in the right way? Is this representation stored in the right element? And not only that, what we're trying to do is we're trying to create this graph on top that gives us all the relationships and possible interaction points of these embeddings, and we then get another layer of meaning. And these can be layered up, they can be divided on user level, they can be merged and cross-analyzed by different other algorithms, and that gives us a lot of flexibility in the design. So I think the RAG approach went into GraphRAG, which went into the dynamic memory optimization. Now we're working with Berkeley and Brown to actually have this predictive memory that where you're predicting end paths of possible futures and then merging them. It sounds a bit like Minority Report type of a
Yeah.
thing, but it's quite interesting.
Okay, so what actually changes once agents kinda start needing to reason over time and relationships or evolving knowledge? Like, it's just a kind of a different way of approaching it. What is changing technically?
Yeah, so before what you would have is a batch job means that it runs sometime a few times a week, or let's say, and that it will populate some type of a data store. And that's what most of the initial RAG pipelines were. You just load the data, forget about it, and you search it when you need it. And that was a difficult problem in itself to solve, but again, it worked to a degree. Now, agents need to search the data, but they also add the data. So they add their reasoning, they add their tool calls. And let's say the agent is reasoning about an apple. But let's say in the company's data silo somewhere, there is a definition of an apple as being a MacBook computer or a physical apple or something like that. And it has a specific context that this MacBook computer can be purchased only by this type of team, and that it has only these types of properties, and we shouldn't order, M4s, but just M3s, things like that. So what we can do is, and what it becomes interesting is that you have all this domain company knowledge, and then these agents need to really, as they reason, they need to connect the dots between these company knowledge domains, need to
Mhm.
access that relatively quickly, return that, and then as they continue reasoning, they need to have a temporal dimension where they know where they started, they know where they left things off, they can continue, and then kind of continue reasoning until all of those representations are stored, retrievable, and shareable across other agents. And the infrastructure for that, as we designed it, of course, there is many implementation, is that we have some type of session memory. So a session starts at time n and finishes at n plus 10, let's say. We can custom set that. And then the agent is loading their reasoning steps into the memory, it's loading their tool calls, and then we have a permanent memory. And we really avoided short term, long term because it gets really fuzzy, especially in cognitive sciences, how you define those. And then permanent memory is where we store the temporal representation. We pull from the distilled memories from the agents, let's say short term or a session memory, and represent it in long term as a trace of what it did, how it reasoned, how it went through certain steps. we have company domain knowledge as a certain, let's say, subgraph, or let's say a category, a folder, if you think of so. And then all of those we can connect with post-processing steps that go and like connect the dots. Let's say Apple was mentioned in multiple places. We can create the links between those. And then effectively what we end up with is this memory that is really fast, this memory that we use right away. The agent is using it for reasoning or searching. And then we have this longer term memory that we can also kind of hot swap into the short term memory temporarily. And that means we have two types of database systems. So we have Redis on one side, we have a Neo4j, let's say, and the vector store like Quadrant, which are both indexing the vectors and the graphs. And all of these systems need to start playing together. And that's where we are this binding glue where we really make sure that within all of these systems, the things work. And on top of that, we have feedback loops. So effectively, as you are providing feedback as an agent, you say, I don't like
Mhm.
this. Then we can go and remove that Apple because it was a physical Apple that we didn't really want. We just needed Apple MacBooks M3, 16 gigs of RAM to order in our purchasing. So that is something that won't happen again. So we have this decomposition, storage, weight calculation where we put certain importance and weights on the data, and then next time it never changes again. So this is kind of the rough overview.
Yeah, and it just feels like you realized at some point that memory needed to live outside the application layer and that it was, memory as infrastructure rather than something that's just like bolted into the model of the workflow. Is that accurate? Like, is that kind of the realization that the company popped out of, or how were you thinking about it when you created it?
Yeah, so I was thinking about it in a way where, if you have a pre-seed startup that needs
Yeah.
to report to their investors, they're going to use a spreadsheet. They don't need a new technology. They're just going to give you some numbers. They're going to do that manually. I was doing it manually until we got the data warehouse a few months ago. I know the stick. And then you get to the seed stage and you need the data warehouse, you need the tables, the reports, and everything else. That's where I think Cognee is. When you need to make your data first class citizen, and you really need to know what's going in, what's going out, how you're actually modeling it and optimizing for it. That's where the companies start needing service like ours, and then it becomes a piece of the infrastructure. Until that point, if you're searching for product market fit, you probably won't prioritize memory unless it's a memory type service. You're probably just going to try to get to the revenue. So
Got it. And, as memory becomes persistent, how does that change how teams are evaluating, debugging, trusting AI agents? Is it changing how they're kind of working together and working with Cognee?
yeah, we've seen a lot of discussions in terms of the traceability and
Mm,
the availability of data. So the every decision can be traced back to the source. That's something that wasn't really possible before. Sorry. And then that allows teams for industries that are very domain specific and very strict to actually implement these types of solutions. So, for example, healthcare, you
mhm.
can't really let the agent run and write into some MD file and hope for the best. Because, for example, for Bayer, we are doing hypothesis prediction in scientific research. I mean, I think they would skin me alive if I was trying to propose something like that. It's
Yeah.
like, good luck with that. And then finance also becomes, especially for cases where you really need to trace the decision for hedge funds when they need to make certain type of an action. All of that needs to be, this traceability becomes a big deal. And that's where with Cognee you can always see where the data came from, what is the source, what kind of transformation happened. And we even can visualize the different transformation points on our new visualizations that are coming out on Thursday. So that's a big announcement. And then effectively people can really see how the data went through this whole set of steps. And I think that piece is super valuable to many people.
Yeah. And so people thinking about the next era of deploying, yeah, I feel like it's changing every day. Every week I see anything that we could, a new way of building. The people that are deploying customer facing agents, like what advice would you give at this moment in time?
So if you're deploying customer facing agents, I would say one of the major thing is getting the good evals
Hmm.
for your system. And also one of the major things is that no one knows what good evals are. I think like that's so that means that I think someone in Anthropic called it vibe evals. So you kind of sit down and you define the vibes until it works. And I
Yeah.
think that's fortunate reality of the market. That's one key requirement. And the second one is, I would say, don't overthink it on the framework or let's say implementation. Don't think too much about implementation details. Just get it to work and you'll find a way, because there is, I think, a lot of noise in the market. There is a lot of tools. Half of them are unnecessary, half of them are somewhat necessary. I would say just get it to work and then you'll figure it out. And if it scales, you'll solve those problems.
Yeah, I think that's right. And even I'm seeing, I'm like a layer above. Like you're in the weeds all day and I'm watching everything happen across all the various startups. And I'm seeing companies pop up and I'm like, I don't think that matters. Like I don't think we need that thing. And then 3 months later they'll pivot to something else. And so it's a very interesting time that I've never in my career in tech, I've never seen things moving around this quickly. It's fun, but it's also a little terrifying when you're trying to invest in companies that are supposed to be a long-term a long-term bet. We'll see. Well, I've learned a ton. I always learn a lot when I talk to you. I think I told you in your data room, I was like, this is incredible. Like I've just like a master class in memory. So I appreciate you jumping on and again, congratulations. I want to do a quick speed round. And so these are not really, I mean, some of these questions are work related, but not necessarily Cognee related. So would love to quickly ask you some questions.
Sure, that's it.
What did you ship in the last 7 days?
New visualization is done, and we shipped the whole platform last night. So yeah,
Oh,
that should be live.
you haven't slept is what I'm hearing.
Sorry?
What I said you haven't slept is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, that's how I look like. I apologize to the watchers. I was focused on the call.
Yeah, yeah. So, kinda same. Like, last night I had, like, a lot to do today, and I just stayed up and did email, and was like, "I'll make it work tomorrow." And if you see, I've got a coffee and, like, a health juice, so we're making it work. What's the hardest technical trade-off you've made so far?
I think it's the latency versus quality. So if you want to produce good quality memory representation, you need time. But if you want AI vibe coders to use it, you need speed. So these types of trade-offs are what we're making all the time.
Has anything almost made you quit?
This project,
Mhm.
yes, I think I had a really bad discussion with the VC very early on,
Mm.
where I think a VC told me like, "Do you think I'm gonna really invest in someone who lives in a subsidized apartment in Berlin?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah, I got that." And I was like sitting to myself, saying, "Oh, but this is a really nice subsidized apartment. Why am I going through this discussion?" I was like, "You know what? I'll just do it because I
I want
believe in it."
a nice apartment. Like, what? No, wow. I'm
Yeah.
sorry someone said that to you, and send me their email. I'll give them a talking to about how to talk to other people. Oh my god. Oh, humans are weird. All right. What metric tells you you're actually winning?
I think the pipeline runs. So we check how much of Cognee's SDK runs we have per month. We are now going to be at 1 million this month, and that was from 2,000 in November. So you as an
Oh my
investor
god,
will get a nice update.
I'm excited. All right. What's your default mode under stress?
I tend to do really well under stress and preform and get creative. And I think like I discovered that by myself with myself over the years.
Yeah, I'm similar. When I'm really stressed out, I get incredible work done. If I'm like feeling calm and normal, I tend to slow down and I'm like, oh, I have 1,000 emails to get through. So I'm exactly the same. What's the hardest part of being a CEO that you had no idea was going to be so hard?
Yeah, you can't make everyone happy. I think that's the piece where you finding what is the things you really truly care about and think are important and communicating that in a structured way in a process oriented setup where no one's feelings are hurt is an incredibly hard thing. Still feelings will be hurt, still you will make mistakes, and
Mhm.
it's always a push and pull. So I think that piece is something I'm still learning and I will forever
Yeah,
keep.
it's true of life too. Like you can't make everyone in life happy, and I think it's just hard. Coffee or tea or something else.
Tea, I'm actually drinking some, and there is a really nice place in Berlin where I ordered like a long iced
Okay.
tea.
Uh, do you like to build? Do you wake up really energized and you get a lot of work done, or are you good at night?
I actually am. I get energized. I do my workouts in the morning, then I do a few hours, then I procrastinate around lunch, and then in the evening it gets to me. So then at
Yeah,
11, I'm like, oh my god, I haven't finished all these
I
things.
I do the same thing. Like in the morning, I'm like, let's go, and I'll go to work out and like get through all my email, and in the middle of the day, I just sort of walk around and stare at the walls. I'm exactly that way. Do you like being in the city or do you like nature?
I do like nature, but in a controlled environment. When you go to Montenegro, there is no concept of privacy. So people come to
Okay.
your place unannounced to have a coffee with you. And if you're working over a laptop, it's not considered work. Only manual physical labor
Yeah,
is
yeah.
still considered work. So that I avoid certain natures, let's say, because of
Are you from like what's the main city in Montenegro called?
Podgorica. No, no. My family is from a really rural place where everyone knows each other, and then it gets really intimate. Let's put
Yeah,
it
yeah.
that way.
One of my good friends is from a rural place in Montenegro, and so I've heard similar stories of people just sort of show up and there's an open door policy, and I'm like, that would drive me nuts. I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
Uh, all right. So, favorite place you've ever worked from? Like, obviously, San Francisco hotels with ugly curtains is probably not the answer, but where somewhere beautiful from?
I worked from Crete once for 20
Oh,
days from a hotel with a nice view over the Libyan Sea, and you could turn on the radio as you cross the mountain, and then the music changes. So you start catching the music from Africa, and then you go over, and so that was a nice place.
oh, that's cool. Do you like to ship fast or do you like to ship perfect?
I like to ship fast myself and make
Mm.
others ship perfect, and then we trade off. It's
They
not
have to clean up your problems. Got it.
well, not really, but like they do their part and it equalizes somehow. So
Yeah, yeah. Do you like working in very small teams or do you like when there's more structure in a bigger team?
I think up to 15, 20 people is my sweet spot. More than that, it's mostly processes.
Yeah, agree. And then are you thinking about design first? Like how, or are you thinking about architecture first and just start building and you'll figure out the design aspect later?
I think I was more, let's get started with building. Now I'm getting a bit more cautious with this many users and this much impact. I can't afford to do the things I did before. So
Yeah.
yeah, we are trying to take. I'm trying to take a step back and think through. And we have an architecture discussion on Friday for 2 hours.
Yeah, yeah, that things change. It is interesting how important design is at this stage, and people deeply care about it. So I'm glad it's shifting because it means you have users. That's the upside. Well, it was so good to talk to you. Congratulations again on the fundraise, on everything you've launched, all the progress. I'm excited to see the investor update. In hindsight, when we're thinking about AI and systems, like memory seems obvious, but I don't think that it was. So I'm just really excited to watch you build Cognee, and thank you so much for allowing me to be on the journey.
Thanks for being on the journey and jumping in. And I think you're the one that didn't hesitate. You were like, I'm doing this. And I always appreciate that.
I knew. I That's the thing with investing is it's if you think too long and you over diligent something, I usually won't do it because I know I'm like something is sticking that I don't like. But if I immediately am like this makes sense and I like this founder and I like the way they're building, I'm pretty quick to make the decision. So yeah, thanks again.
Thanks.